Hello there, adventurers, and welcome to Wally DM. Today I thought I'd take you through the steps that I take to prep for a game. Now, I actually do have my Waterdeep Dragon Heist game tonight, so my campaign will be kicking off in a few hours, and I thought what better time and what better way to show you how I prep than to actually take you through the steps. So probably the first thing that I do for prep is my Step 0. And Step 0 is to simply go back and review the notes from the previous games. Now, up through about our 10th game of this campaign, I was really bad at keeping notes. They were all on paper. I didn't retype them or nothing. But for the last 3 games, I've been able to. I actually have a website, wallydm.com, and my Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign, so you're more than welcome to look at it if you want. I go through and I put the notes of our adventure. So Step 0 that I do in prepping for a game is I go back and I read and see what happened the last few times we played. And I do this just so I can remember, like, oh yeah, I got to remember they met so-and-so. I got to remember to include that person in this game, in tonight's game. Or just to look at possible plot points that maybe 3 episodes ago, so like episode 12, Devil with the Blue Dress On, I was like, oh yeah, that creepy little girl. I should put her in tonight's game. So that's pretty much what I do with that. Last adventures was episode 14, burnt, fried, and extra crispy. So I'm going to review all of that, see what happened in our last game, and then I'll probably read through a few more and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. I'm going to include a part of that in this game. So Step 0 of prepping for a game is to refamiliarize myself with what has already happened so far in our game. Now, the first step that I take takes place a couple days beforehand, and in order to get me into the mode of being a dungeon master and running my game, I start to listen to a lot of Chris Perkins. He's by far one of my most favorite DMs. I feel his DM style is probably one that I like to emulate the most, and just watching him come up with things on the fly and how he interacts with his players and the way that he does things is just amazing to me. So step 1 for me, and I'll either do this at home or I'll put it on my phone if I'm at work, plug the earphones in, and I work at a desk all day, so on the computer, and I've got Chris Perkins for 2 or 3 days solid, just getting me in the mode of DMing and listening to how he runs things. Now, step 2 for me getting ready for a game also takes place a couple days before, and that is usually just to think about my campaign whenever I have extra free time. And that extra free time is usually when I go to bed. I lie there awake for about a half an hour to 45 minutes, and I'm thinking about my game then. Perhaps when I'm in the shower, I'll drift off thinking about what I'm going to do next in the game. But probably my primary time for doing that is my drive to and from work. And I have about a 17-minute drive, so I turn my radio off and I start thinking about 3 main things. I think about where my campaign is at now and where are the possibilities that it could go. What can I introduce new this week that's going to either tie into a character's backstory or to a current plot? What can I bring in from the past that the characters or the players might have forgotten by now, but I can entwine and bring back to current day that they can meet in this next adventure? Not only that, but I also think of what NPCs am I going to include in this next game? What monsters might pop up in an encounter? And I just get my mind going in all of these tangents. I like to just start here and be like, here's where we're at now. We could go this way, we could go this way, we could go this way, we could go this way. Now, with most players, of course, I just listed 4 different ways we could go. They're probably going off in direction 5. So in my mind, I just run through parts of stories or things that could happen or directions I could take the game if I'm presented with that 5th option. If the characters throw me off course, what can I do to impromptu go the direction that they're going, or if I need to steer them back, So in my mind, I've got all these different scenarios and how they could play out. In fact, let me take you back to an earlier time where I'm in my car, and I'll kind of give you a feel of how I prep for a game just for my drive to work. So the question's been asked, how do I prepare for my D&D game? Well, a huge chunk of it is just right up in my head. And I take whatever free time I have available. Usually it's on my drive to work, like today, for instance. I'm sitting here, I've got a 17-minute drive to work. I could be listening to the radio or things of that nature, but instead I turn the radio off and I kind of just focus on my campaign. So one of the things I try to focus on my drives is, where is my game going? Where can my players take it tonight by what I have already set in motion? And so I'll just start playing through my head and imagining different scenarios that we are either continuing, things that have happened in the past, or perhaps things that I want to introduce, either with like NPCs or events or things of that nature. And in my mind, I kind of do a tree, like if they react this way, then I'll do this. If they react this way, then I'll introduce this. If they react this way, then I'll do this. So I kind of plan that out in my head. And along with that, what type of NPCs they'll find along the way, where can I put things from their background in, or the current quest they're on, maybe some clues, some items, all kinds of different stuff. But a lot of this brainstorming and premeditated planning comes just from my drive to work. Now, I also use my drive to work and my drive home as an opportunity to practice voices. I am not very good at doing voices, so I like to practice and at least be a little bit respectable when I do introduce them. Another problem I do have is when I reintroduce an NPC, I forget what voice I use for them. So, like, take Sergeant Signet. He could be like one particular type of an accent in one game, and then 3 or 4 sessions later be a totally different one. I try to make good notes and I try to go back if I can, but sometimes that just happens because I forget a lot. But let's take tonight's game, for example. I'm preparing for episode 14 of our Dragon Heist campaign, which is more of just a Waterdeep campaign at this point. We've kind of gone off the rails a little bit. But for instance, I do plan on the characters getting their first glimpse of Xanathar. Xanathar will be walking down, or will be floating down the sewers, because the adventuring party is going back down into the sewers. This time they're down there to rescue the brother of Minette. And Minette is a waitress in the Yawning Portal. So they're down there to rescue Jeremiah, her brother. And I plan on them encountering, one of the first things they're going to encounter is the Xanathar. And flanked to the left and the right of the Xanathar is going to be 2 city guards. And I had introduced this really creepy girl probably about 2 or 3 sessions ago, and I plan on making her a sorcerer that is working with the Xanathar, and she uses her powers to manipulate minds. And so I've got 4 voices right there. I've got the Xanathar, I've got my girl with the blue dress on, and I've got my 2 city guards. So the Xanathar, I'm thinking more, and I've kind of taking this from Chris Perkins and Dice Camera Action, more of a, if they run into him, or perhaps just walking by him, maybe they hide off to the side and watch him float, watch the Xanathar float by, be like,
"Is everything taken care of? Great. We shall proceed with everything as planned. Fantastic work."
So that's kind of the voice I'm thinking for the Xanathar. Of course, when I play tonight, I'll have to get really close to my mic to make sure that voice comes through. And of course, the girl with the blue dress on, I'm kind of going for an innocent yet mischievous voice for her, and maybe a little bit of an English accent. "Yes, Xanathar, there's no need to worry about anything. I have everything covered. And absolutely, no one followed us down here." And then I've got the 2 city guard, which is kind of a plot I'm trying to bring up where maybe there's a little bit of corruption with the Xanathar and the city guard. So with the city guard, I'm just thinking more of a, "Right, boss. Yeah, we got everything covered. City Hall, we wiped out the records. Nobody suspects anything. We got through that clean. We destroyed all the evidence." So kind of like that. So those are the voices I have in mind. And so as I'm preparing for my game tonight, those are some of the voices I'm going to practice. Okay, step 3 is my prep for the game. Now, I usually start this the night before and the day of. My memory is not very good, so if I do things in advance, I'm just going to forget it, and then I'm going to have to come back again the night before and the day of and to go through things. So, a lot of the things that I'll prep for is, number one, I'll get the books out that I'm going to need. So, I always have the Dungeon Master Guide. That's always on hand, as is the Player's Handbook. Specifically, the Player's Handbook, I find myself looking up a lot of spells, whether it's for NPCs or to help the players out. I always have spells available. Dungeon Master Guide in case a rule comes up, and of course Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which is just part of that core rule book. Those 3 books right there. Now, for my Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign tonight, the adventurers are going down into the sewer. They found the I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but they're headed down into the sewer for 2 reasons. One, to find out what happened at the skewer dragon. It was totally charred on the inside. Trail leads down in the sewer. But also, number 2, as previously explained on my drive to work, is they're supposed to be rescuing the brother of Minette, who is a bartender at the Yawning Portal, or a waitress at the Yawning Portal. So, while they're down there, I intend on them getting their first glimpse of the Xanathar. So I need to have my Volo's Guide to Monsters on hand just in case something happens. I really like this book for the Beholder section. And in fact, I have a surprise for them with a very small Beholder that they'll encounter. And I'm going to need this to prep to make sure I run my Beholder correctly. I've got Dragon Heist bookmarked, and I'll use this. I'll put little tabs on here. I've got things right now that I'm worried about remembering for their guilds, for maybe some of the NPCs, things of that nature. So I have all of those bookmarked out there, and we are running Dragon Heist, so I've got to have that on hand. And in case I decide to throw any treasure, and I like to have the Ultimate Equipment by Pathfinder. It's a very good book that I use for magic items. So one of the things that I find most important about preparing for a session is to limit the amount of monsters that I have in my game. So in tonight's session, again, we're going down into the sewers, and there will be an encounter with the Xanathar, 2 city guards, and a small sorcerer. Now, hopefully the party does not attack or try to engage the Xanathar and the 3 henchfolk. But if they do, I do have to be prepared, which is why I have the Volo's Guide there. But I'm hopefully that encounter slips by with maybe a word exchange or just a little bit of spying, if that. The main beef of the combat encounters for tonight's game is going to be out of the monster manual. And this will be their first encounter with were-rats. So about an hour and a half before the game, I'm going to read through the lycanthrope were-rat again, get familiar with its abilities, and I'm going to try to formulate how many of these were-rats are going to be there, what are they doing, and I'm going to try to get into the heads of the were-rats. And again, in my game, or in tonight's game, they're going to have 3 or 4 prisoners. As mentioned a little bit earlier in my drive to work, there's going to be the prisoner that is the owner of the Skewer Dragon. There's going to be a magic user that has gone missing by the name of Visago. And there is going to be the brother of the waitress, whose name is Jeremiah. And all 3 of those will be in cells down there, plus a couple of extra surprises that I can't wait to reveal to the players. So, again, I advise when I prep for a game, only at the most 4 monsters that I want to introduce for that game, just so I can be very familiar with them and I can run them correctly. I think if I run more than 4 different monsters, if I try to throw a rust monster, a lycanthrope, some ghouls, some skeletons, a cube, an ochre jelly, and throw all these different monsters in them, I just don't feel like I would run them correctly because I didn't familiarize myself with them. So, one of my main tips that I give for that is prepping only 2 to 4 monsters at most. Okay, so this is my game setup for playing online. And again, I will be playing my Dragon Heist Waterdeep campaign tonight. And just starting with my computer first, this is it's kind of like Zoom. It's called appear.in. And I believe I pay $9.99 a month for it. But I get really good audio and video with this. I had problems with Discord cutting in and out a lot, so this is very much worth it for me to run my games with no issues whatsoever. And here in a little bit, when everyone's ready to join in and play, they'll pop up and their screens will be over there. One of the neat things about this is also I can share my screen. So if I need to like share some maps or something like this, I just pop that up, and I have an entire folder for Waterdeep over here. So if they were to be given a puzzle, or I needed to show them something, I could pop something in there to show them. Or if I need to show them a map, so I can have a map out here. And again, all this is in appear.in is sharing the folder that I have over here. I've just got JPEGs and stuff like that. I double click on them, I'm sharing my screen, and now we can all look at the map if we need to look at the map. I run primarily Theater of the Mind, but every once in a while I do like to have the map so they can kind of get acquainted with their surroundings, or if there's a monster, I can show a picture of a monster or a picture of an NPC or things of that nature. Now, my other things that I have here, I have my webcam, Logitech 970, 920, something like that, I'm not sure. And I have my Yeti Blue mic, which gives me really good audio. So I've got this here for my audio. I've got my video here so that we can play online and we can see each other. I'm a DM that very much likes to be able to see my players, and both this setup here works very well for me. Right now I am using my Ravnica dice along with my Dragon Heist dice. So I have my main D20 that I roll. I've got my dice tray here, made by Eris Custom Design, and so I can roll over here. I've got plenty of D6s, so if I need to roll a bunch at once, I can do that. But again, I've got my Return to Ravnica dice along with my Dragon Heist dice. Those are the main ones I roll, and I just leave them in here until I need them and then roll in there. I've got my headphones because again, we're going to be online and be able to hear everybody. Got to have my headphones on. I've got 3 sheets of paper in front of me. The first one, and I'm sure you can't see it from there, but I'll just kind of explain, is my plan for the campaign and the different directions. I told you the different directions we could go. So up here I have where we're at now, some important NPCs, and I have an arrow over here. If the players decide to go this way, these are all the different things that can happen here, or the people they can run into, the things they can find. If they decide to go this way, here's the things that can happen. If they decide to go this way, here's the things that can happen. If they decide to go this way, here's the things that could happen, and then it could go this way or this way. And then down here at the bottom, I put some reminders of things that I may want to, maybe some seeds for some future plots, maybe introduce them to an NPC, but not fully introduce them. So at a later time I can be like, yeah, you remember back then, blah, blah, blah. So here's where I'll write a few things that I need to remember as far as NPCs, or maybe some plot ideas that I want to throw in from here or there. This right here is blank because I haven't drawn it yet, but since we are going down in the sewers, I am going to draw a map of the sewers and where they're going to be. So I am probably going to start drawing this here in a little bit. And I will probably just put point of entrance, and I'll put some main encounter areas, and then of course the directions that they take. And a lot of this map I'll probably draw as we go, and it'll be fine there. But just a little bit of a map so I can keep track of where their characters are at. And the final thing, sheet 3, which is also blank at this time, but I'll kind of explain what I do here, is I draw 4 lines, I go across 4 times, and I write my characters' names in here. So we've got Zell, we've got Nicodemus, we've got Miralith, and we've got Hugin. And then my 5th slot is monsters. And so, not a fun way to keep track of initiative, but this is how I keep track of initiative, is I'll just write it there. I'll be like, Zell, what'd you roll? 12, that's great. Nico, what'd you roll? 8, that's fine. And then I'll fill in the numbers there, and that's how I run combat. Now I'll have this sheet set up in advance, and I'll also have my creatures on there too. So I'll go ahead and have were-rats. So maybe I decided I'm going to have 6 of them. I'll put them down here. I'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and put their total hit points, which I'm going to give them all 33 hit points apiece. And I'll have those ready to go. So once combat starts or whatnot, then I can just start crossing up the hit points. And if I have special notes about one, maybe where-rat number 6 is hidden or was out scouting and may come in later after combat starts, then I'll make a note there, not present at moment. Or maybe I want to make one of these a leader, and I'll bump up the hit points maybe to 47, and I'll put leader or something like that. So But that's what I do there. And again, I'll put any other notes of creatures or things that they can encounter. So that's all I have for you today. Again, that was a requested video on how I prep for a game. And as you can tell, I'm kind of a lazy dungeon master. I don't go through a whole lot. I just try to prep for the next game, and I start 2 or 3 days before, again, because my memory is so terrible, and it just doesn't do me any good to prep any sooner than that. And I like the few days at a time thing. Through my game and in my game, I'll put little seeds and plant some ideas for the future and stuff like that. And again, I'll just go through my notes from the previous few games and see what I want to include. So again, that's all I have for you. That's how I prep for a game. And speaking of which, I have one here in a little bit. Tonight we're playing Waterdeep Dragon Heist, episode 15 for us. And tonight our characters are going down into the swamp for 2 reasons. Number 1, because the skewer dragon, the inside of it was scorched. So they're going to try to find out what happened there. And number 2, because they are trying to find the brother of Minette from the Yawning Portal, who she believes is being held captive down there. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with my players tonight. I do play with an amazing group. These guys make it easy on me, and it's just amazing. I always have a great time. So again, that's all I have for you. Feel free to ask any questions if there's something you want to see in a future video with regards to how I set up for a game, or just any questions about what I've showed here for you tonight. So with that being said, don't forget to leave a comment. It helps the channel out a lot. Like, share, subscribe. If you haven't joined our Discord server yet, join our Discord. There's a lot of good folks over there giving great advice. Come join us and hang out. That's all I have. Have a great time, and on to the next.